Calling to order the regular meeting of the Wheeling Plan Commission for Thursday, July 10th, 2014. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. Secretary Pro Tem, the roll call, please.
Commissioner Dorbin.
I'm here.
Commissioner Powers is absent with prior notice. Commissioner Stylen.
Here.
Commissioner Vito.
Here.
Commissioner Zangira, I'm here. And Chairperson Pro Tem Johnson.
I am here. Mr. Jennings, any changes to the agenda?
We have no changes this evening.
Citizens' concerns and comments. If there's members of the audience that have anything they'd like to bring up other than the items that are up for review, this would be the time to do it. Seeing none, I guess we will move on. We have no consent items tonight. So we have items for review. Docket number 2014-11, Daycare 21, 1473 Aberndale Court, special use site plan approval for home daycare. Mr. Secretary.
Docket number 2014-11. Lourdes Cohen, operator and property owner of Daycare 21, is seeking special use site plan approval and as required under Chapter 19-04 Residential Districts, Section 19.04.040 R3 Single Family Residential District and Chapter 19-10 Use Regulations, Section 19.10.050 Residential Use Regulations, Subsection B, Daycare Home, and associated sections to operate a home daycare on the property located at 1473 Aberndale Court, Wheeling, Illinois. Standards for a special use. A zoning special use as defined in Title 19 of the Village of Wheeling zoning is a use of parcel of land that requires review and consideration before approval due to circumstances or effects on the surrounding properties that may adversely affect them. In order to be considered for a special use, the petitioner is required to demonstrate through testimony to the Planning Commission at a public hearing why the request meets the conditions of the Village Code, including, but not limited to, how the proposed use will not damage the enjoyment or use of the surrounding properties. Prior to the public hearing, the petitioner provides written statements meant to show that the request for the special use meets the standard established in Title 19. The Commissioner Chairperson will typically direct that these statements be entered into the record without a full reading of them at the hearing. Based upon the testimony, the supporting materials submitted, the Planning Commission will make findings in support of or against the petitioner's testimony and report those findings to the Village Board.
Thank you. Is the petitioner here? Please come up. Raise your right hand. You swear that the testimony you're going to give tonight is the truth?
Yes.
Thank you. Are you the only one that's going to speak on this?
I mean, my
from your side?
Yeah, my husband's here, but I'm fine.
Okay. Go ahead, make your presentation. Oh, what? Oh, yes, give your name and address to the recording secretary, please.
Oh, Lourdes Cohen, 1473 Aberndale Court, Wheeling, Illinois, 60090.
Okay.
I really didn't have a presentation ready. I kind of thought that you guys would be asking questions. I run a home daycare from my home. I've been licensed for 3 years. I started working at the school district, saw a need in our community through the teachers that I worked for. Hence Daycare 21, because I at the time just serviced school teachers in our district. And decided to go ahead with this. I went through the process of being licensed by the state of Illinois, And, you know, that's pretty much about it.
So you're just expanding?
Yes. I've always been licensed for 8. I was unaware that I needed to go through this process with the village.
Oh, okay.
Could you do me a favor and pull the microphone down
Oh,
before we
sure.
go on, please?
Sure.
And to recap what you just said, for the benefit of those who couldn't hear that, you've been licensed for 8 children through DCFS. The Village of Wheeling requires licensing through the special use process
Right.
for any daycare home that has more than 3 children.
Correct.
So at this time, your request is for how many through the village?
I am licensed through the state of Illinois for 8, but I only do 6. And I do 6 with an adult assistant with me.
And just to recap some of the staff review on this, you have been visited by the State Fire Marshal, DCFS, the local fire inspector, and
Right.
the local health officer, correct?
Right. I regularly am visited by DCFS. I mean, that's part of their processing with the licensing, but most recently was notified through a visit through the village.
And for the record, you did receive a copy of the staff report as well as the
Yes.
fire inspector's required
Yes.
modifications relative to the hardwiring of smoke
Yeah,
detectors.
my house is already hardwired.
Okay.
Right.
All right. Is there anybody that would like to speak on this matter?
We'll go through those who've signed up first, and then we'll open it up. If you could just step aside. The way that this will
Sure.
work is we'll go down the list. If there are questions, you can certainly answer them in between or wait until the end.
Okay.
We'll see how many questions come up. And then
Okay.
after the public asks questions, the commission would have an opportunity for questions.
Perfect.
I
Should I
have.
sit down
You
during
can just
questioning?
move to the side if you want.
Okay.
There's not a whole lot of space up there. I have Luis Oriendo, I believe it is? Orlando, sorry. Yes.
Raise your right hand. Is testimony you're going to give tonight the truth?
Yes, sir.
Please give your name and address to the recording secretary.
It's Orlando, L-O-U-I-S, Orlando, O-R-L-A-N-D-O, 1465 Avondale Court. Can I approach? Like, just a hint, give you a little quick handout?
Sure.
This is just something, I got nominated, I guess.
Thank you.
Speak so we don't have a array of people up here speaking. I'll try and be brief in 5 minutes.
All right.
I also have a petition signed by 12 residents on Avondale Court. I don't have a copy of this. We don't send it. And this is just an outline. I'll touch on it, expound on it. Any questions, please stop me.
Okay.
Concerns for, like I said, I speak for the 12 people on there and myself. I live directly next door to Lawrence, by the way. First question right off the bat is why would Wheeling even want to set this type of precedent, having a small business in a residential area? I could give you 100 examples, we can go on and on, but where does it stop, where does it start? If I want to do brake jobs on a car, I'll do 3 brake jobs a day, never after 5 o'clock, and I'll do 3 brake jobs in my driveway, that's all I'm gonna do. We'll have a special zoning hearing for that, I don't know.
Are you asking questions for an answer? Or is this
I'm
rhetorical?
stating a point just to,
Go on.
so you could ponder it. So I come in front of you and say I want to open a car shop and do brake jobs only, very quiet. I'll do 3 a day, and now we have a vehicle repair shop on the street. There's a dentist on the block that the point came up, can she run her dental office out of her home? Just to throw that out there. Again, why would the village want to set this precedent? Where does it stop? The increase in traffic flow. It's already been a nuisance. It's a nuisance for me. I live next door. I cannot speak for everyone, but this is what everyone tells me. You could say everyone is speeding. It's very hard to prove. Everyone's flying down the street. I've heard that a million times. Are they? I'm sure they're not flying down the street, but what I can tell you is every day, the cars are parked illegally. You can see from the picture there, it's a 2-car driveway. Lourdes has 4 cars in her home. It's impossible not to park illegally. They have to park illegally. They have to park blocking the sidewalk, and if they don't park on the sidewalk, they have to park blocking my driveway. I know you could say, well, it's only for a minute, it's only for 5 minutes, it's this and that. Well, whatever it is, they're illegally parked cars there every single day. And it's no big deal until something happens. Somebody's walking down the sidewalk and somebody comes up over across it and they get hit, somebody backs out, the snow comes, the plows come down the street, there's cars on the street. 3 to 6 children, how much noise can they make? Well, what if somebody works midnights? They're outside playing. What if somebody just wants to sleep till 9 or 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock in the morning? Children make noise. It's not their fault. I understand there's supposed to be a 6-foot fence around the home. There is a 6-foot fence in the back, but on the sides it's 4 feet. There's a 4-foot fence on the, east and west side of her home. Anyone could stand and look over that fence and look at the children. I can look at the children, the other side can look at anybody. There's people that look over that fence all the time and talk to the neighbors. I wonder why is Wheeling even entertained this idea. Last year, a gentleman that lives behind 1473 in the townhouses, I don't know if you're aware of this, had an accident. He stepped on the gas instead of the brake. He drove over my backyard, over my bushes, knocked down 2 sections of fence in Lourdes' backyard, ended up against a tree. That's what stopped him. If that tree wasn't, he thought he was stepping on the brake instead of the gas. He admitted that. He was an older gentleman. That happens a lot more than people realize. If it wasn't for that tree, he would have definitely went through her backyard. Would he have hit any children if they were out there? You can't say that. But he would have definitely gone through her backyard, possibly into the next yard. I don't know. But if that tree wasn't there, he would have went through her yard. Again, foresight I have here is the key to life. Why would we want to set this precedent? Finally, myself, other residents, we go to sell a house. I bought a house on a cul-de-sac. I looked for a house on a cul-de-sac. The only people that should be driving down a cul-de-sac are people that live there. It's a beautiful thing because when there's a strange car. What's this car doing here? Oh, he lives over here. He's visiting this one. Okay. You bought a house on a cul-de-sac not to have all kinds of traffic, and you want to know everybody that's on your block. But anyway, a potential buyer comes in. He pulls the records, or there's special zoning. What kind of special zoning? Well, there's a daycare center next door to you. I don't want to live next door to a daycare center. Ask yourselves that question. You want to live next door to a daycare center. I just see a lot of reasons. I'm sure Lourdes is a great caregiver. I just don't know why she can't rent a storefront and have her daycare center out of her storefront. Why have it in a residential area? And again, where does it stop? And again, the illegally parked cars, it's just, you cannot park in front of the house without parking illegally. If you look there, a car does not fit. It can't fit there. You cannot park on the street without parking illegally and blocking the driveway. It's an impossibility. Any questions of myself?
Nope, not at this point.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
That is the only member of the audience who has signed up. Is there anyone else in the audience who would like to make comments or ask a question on this matter? Please come forward.
We have another one over there.
Hello there.
Hi.
My name is Alan Anderson. I live at 1475 Avondale Court, which is the house right next door. I just wanted to add that I'm sure all of you are aware that behind our property is the VIP apartments. There's a lot of problems back there on weekends. During the week, people drink back in that back parking lot. There's a lot of little sex parties back there. That's one of them. A couple of years back, somebody drove through the bushes, through my backyard and back out again. And there's a report in the village on that there. So that was unsafe. And in regarding to the fence, I don't know what all the laws are, but I would say if you're going to have children out there playing around, that fence is not very sturdy. You could probably walk up to it, 2 fingers, and push it over. And that's about all I have to say. Is there anything you wanted to ask me?
No, thank you.
Just that 6-foot fence confused me. I mean, it's definitely 4 feet on, definitely 4 feet on both sides. That you're looking at the side.
Is there anyone else who has comments or questions on this matter? Please come forward.
Steve Corn, wife of Lawrence Corn. Husband.
I'm sorry, I forgot to swear the last person in. You swear the testimony you're about to give is the truth?
Yes, it is.
And your name and address?
Steve Corn, 1473 Auburndale Court, Wheeling, Illinois.
Thank you.
I wanted to just clarify a few things that were stated. Number one, we own 2 cars. We have a 2-car garage. Lords' car is in the garage during the day. I'm at work. I leave for work at 6 o'clock in the morning every day. We have 2 grown children. They have their own homes. They don't live in our premises anymore, in our residence. Our driveway could handle the cars that come and go and spend a couple of minutes dropping off their children every morning and picking up in the evening. They are not out on the street. They're in the driveway. So the statement that was made that 4 of our cars are on the driveway is an inaccurate statement. Any questions from me on that? I just wanted to clarify that there is not a problem with our driveway and the cars that come and go. They come at different times, starting at 6:45 in the morning till 9, 8:30, 9. So it isn't like they're all coming at one time. We respect the street. I think you can see the appearance of our house, and it's a well-kept street, and we take a lot of pride in our neighborhood as in our home as well. And I think every person sitting there would testify that we have a beautiful home, as they do too. It is never our intention to disrespect our neighbors. There is never any children's toys out in the front. Never. Never. You wouldn't know there was a daycare center until that sign went up there that there was going to be a hearing. Noise. The children are young. They're not out. If they're outside for a few minutes during the day. The children are gone by 5 o'clock at night. There's no issue in the evenings. The speeding of traffic, we could talk about how much speeding can be done on a cul-de-sac, a 1-block cul-de-sac. It doesn't happen. Again, we have a beautiful street. We respect and enjoy. We have been there. We were the first resident on the street when we built. We have been there for 26 and a half years. And we plan to be in Wheeling for many more years. We respect our neighbors. Mr. Orlando, to be put frankly on record, he has never lived in the house next door. That house has been empty except for about 1.5 years in the 26 and a half years that I've lived there. He comes once or twice a week, takes great care of his property. He shovels the snow, cuts the grass. You would never know nobody lives there. That house has been empty. Okay, that's his business. I want you guys to know that. Okay, he's not there. Comes every so often and takes care of his property, and I'm sure everybody on the block appreciates that he takes care of his property. Okay, his business, whether he lives there or not. He said he lives there. He doesn't. He owns it. Okay, so I wanted that to be put on record as well. That's all I have. Any questions for me?
Not at this point.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else?
May I also say something again?
Come on back up here.
I also, I say the truth. Anyway, I just wanted to say is that I've lived in Wheeling for many years, and I lived over at 359 Morris Avenue. I lived there for 18 years, okay? And I moved out of there because of a lot of kids and a lot of traffic down the street. And I chose because I like Wheeling. And then I moved into 1475, and I believe I was the third person in on that block. And I've been there ever since. I take a lot of pride in my house. And in the mornings, I get up every morning, 4:45, and I leave at various times in the morning. But there are people that drive extremely fast in the morning, and I could specifically spell out one specific vehicle, but I'll let that go at this time. But I just wanted to know the feelings that I have, and as the other gentleman had stated, that if we were to sell our house, if there's a daycare center there, that's going to lower the value of my house. That's if they wanted to buy it. Thank you very much.
I do have one question for you.
Yes, sir.
Were you aware that she's been running a daycare center for 3 years?
Yes, that I knew. It started off small, okay? And now, when this all came up, now she wants to expand. Where does this stop? Okay, and I've looked on the internet. I've talked with several people. I've also called the village here. I've asked many things, and I was told she had a license through DCFS, and she was only having 3 kids. I learned tonight she had more. And when I called, she wanted to expand to 6. If you look on the internet, it says 8. And then if you go to 8, you go beyond 8, there's another level again.
Correct.
Did I answer that?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, I guess we will start with our commissioners. Commissioner Stylen, start with you.
Mr. Chairman. Andrew, do we have a policy on dropping children off? Do we require them to drop off in a driveway or on the street? What is our policy?
It is to be dropped off in the driveway of the home.
Could I say something?
Yes.
I was unaware of the need to apply for the business license. And for the record, which I can prove through DCFS, I, for the last 2 years, have had 6 children. Never once has anyone on the block ever knocked on my door and said, what's going on in here? I have been incredibly respectful to my block and to my neighbors. And for 2 years, this has not been a problem until that sign went up. When we go outside, most of my children, 3 of them are under 1. We take the toddlers outside because I have a fairly sunny backyard, so I have to be cautious about having them outside in the sun. We're outside for 15 minutes to a half hour at 9 o'clock in the morning. Occasionally, we're outside for another 15 minutes in the fenced-in backyard for maybe 20 minutes in the afternoon. And sometimes we don't even get to do that. And most of the time we don't. Most of the going out is done in the morning. And as far as our fence has been fixed and maintained. We have had numerous times we've had sections replaced. Our fence is very, very sturdy. And DCFS came and inspected it, and they didn't see a problem with any of it.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Stylen, continue.
Question for the petitioner. You stated that you do have one assistant. Does that assistant drive to your house and
She does drive to the house. If I have more than 3 children, I do have the assistant come. This summer, I just have 3 children, so I'm actually doing all the daycare myself.
But if she does?
If she does, she drives and pulls up on the driveway.
And will there always be a spot on the driveway for
Oh, yeah.
people to drop off?
There's always 3 cars. We could fit 4 cars on our driveway with no problem. And the drop-offs literally last a couple of minutes.
And I would ask that you ensure that your patrons all
All
tend
of
to
them have-
stagger their arrivals so that
Right.
people
And
are-
I've even told them, I said, if you come and you see that there's 2 cars on the driveway, you have to park on the street, on a straight spot, because we are a cul-de-sac. And they have done that.
You know, because it is a rather
Absolutely.
limited area for parking. So,
Oh, absolutely.
the more that you can do to ensure a staggered drop-off.
And most of it is staggered because high school teachers, they drop off at 6:45. I have 2 high school teachers that drop their children off then. Everyone else is full-time, and they drop off anywhere from 7:30 to 11 o'clock in the morning.
I mean,
It's very, very staggered.
occasionally there might be a,
Once in a blue moon.
Exactly.
Exactly. And I'm not saying that it can't happen, it certainly can.
but I mean, just do what you
Right.
can to ensure that they're
Absolutely,
staggered.
absolutely.
Andrew, do we have any requirements for a fence height?
The zoning code has a requirement. DCFS does not have that requirement. So the zoning code refers to a rear yard fence height of 6 feet. We have had the precedent through this review process of waiving that or reducing it, modifying it as appropriate. We've had a few different home daycares where there have been specific requests to either delay the installation. We had one, there was a neighbor who specifically wanted an open fence to remain due to a flower bed. So during the process of the hearing, we can take in the findings and make a recommendation to the board based on the unique circumstances.
I guess my concern about fences is more one of protecting the children that are in
Right.
the yard, especially from neighborhood pets, animals, dogs, especially ones that might be nipping and
Well,
whatever.
our fence is completely enclosed in the back.
And
There is no open area to
appears to be a board-on-board fence.
board-on-board fence. It is 6 foot in the back of the house. Gosh, I can't think of the name of the street, but the ones facing the Harbor Lane, yeah. But it does graduate to 3 feet where there are huge bushes, and then it does go 4 feet on the side. We have huge landscaping all around our lot. We are happy to have anyone come and take a look. I don't worry about people looking at children from my yard at all.
Yeah, like I said, my concern is little hands sticking.
Oh, absolutely, and it's all closed off and
Through the
fenced.
fence. I mean,
Yes.
you have a board-on-board which prohibits that, and then you have another layer of insulation, all that landscaping.
All the
that you have
landscape,
that,
it's bedding all the way around the fence line.
So, I think the fence height doesn't appear, at least in my mind, to bother me
Mm-hmm.
that much. I think it's, you've got sufficient buffer, I believe, and, there aren't going to be little hands going through, so.
Right.
The other condition, though, I would like to make, Mr. Chairman, is I don't see anything explicit in the recommendation other than a reference to the project description letter. I would like to have an explicit condition limiting the number of children to 6 at this particular point in time, as that's what the petitioner is asking for. Other than that, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
We're currently taking comments from the commissioners right now. At the discretion of the chair, we can open that again in a second, okay?
Commissioner Dorband.
Thank you. Well, I'm looking at these children and thinking to myself, if you had 6 children of your own, how would your neighbors feel? They wouldn't have a problem with that, certainly, because you live there. And your children would definitely not be going home at 5 o'clock. They'd be staying. So
My pickup time is technically 4:30.
So I mean,
Right.
there are some, other opposite things I'm looking at both sides. As far as, and those same 6 children, 3 of them could be young adults and driving motorcycles. And so there is that other issue of, small children compared to older children with motorcycles or being very loud and loud parties and things like that. It is a neighborhood. The other piece of it is, the speeding of the cars. You have, 2 of your people are teachers.
2 are high school
And
teachers.
I come from an education background. Teachers, by and large, are very concerned about other children and what is going on around them. They are very cautious. I have no question that, and parents in general are going to be careful around other children to make sure that they're safe. The one thing I would be concerned about is maybe, is there a possibility, I believe that you said that one car, your car is in the garage, and the other car that would be in the garage is gone for the day, the majority of the time.
Right.
Is it possible for your helper that you have
To put her
take
car
that-
inside?
that-
Yeah, sure. That's
that would, I
actually a
think,
wonderful
And I
idea.
would feel more comfortable with 2
Right.
parking spots on the driveway.
Absolutely.
And the one condition I would like to make, although I would presume most parents do this, is that when the vehicle is leaving the child or picking a child up, that they turn the vehicle off and the keys are removed before the children get in or out.
Right.
That would be the only thing I would be concerned with. As far as living on a cul-de-sac, my area is pretty much like a cul-de-sac. You can't stop people from speeding. If they're going to speed, they're going to speed. You can't stop that. As far as children's toys being in the front, I
There's
don't
never
have
a
a problem
toy in
with
the
that.
front.
It's a neighborhood. It's a neighborhood. Children,
Well, even as a neighborhood,
I mean, our neighborhood,
was
we
never
have
a toy
children,
in the
and
front,
we
right.
expected them to have toys outside.
right.
You walk with children, you walk with your own children. Neighborhood people come and walk throughout the cul-de-sac. A cul-de-sac is a wonderful place to walk. So I don't think that has a lot of merit. And as far as the storefront issue that was discussed, people today don't want to go to a storefront. If they want a home daycare, that's what they're looking for. They're looking for more of a home setting, not a storefront setting. As far as the fencing around, you've indicated that it's a sturdy fence, that, the only thing, if it's a 4-foot fence, maybe you want to consider making it a higher fence at some point. The other question I had, in your cul-de-sac, and I know that there are cul-de-sacs that allow this and some that don't, but around the cul-de-sac, do other people park on the street? I mean, are there people that park along that area?
I mean, legally, I guess you're supposed to park along the straightaway of a cul-de-sac to not block any type of fire equipment from coming through.
But other people do use the street to park in?
Yeah, occasionally if there's like a quick drop-off, people, my neighbors
I don't mean
people do that.
I don't mean
Sure.
necessarily the people that are coming to drop their
Right.
children off. I mean,
Right.
other neighbors, do they have?
It doesn't happen very often, to be honest
But it
with
does
you.
happen. Okay, so-
Occasionally, but not very often.
That's really the only questions I have. I have to look at it like these are children. If you had 6 children of your own, they would make noise, they would do things. If you had older children, they could have motorcycles, they could have loud parties. You don't have that. These children are leaving at 5 o'clock. So, I have a neighbor who's, currently, went to a very expensive daycare and is now looking at home daycare because this is not that storefront or, very polished kind of setting is not what they want. They want more of a home daycare. So I understand there's a great need, and if by Terry's comment about limiting to 6, I don't think that's an issue.
It's the number that I've had for 2 years, so that's perfectly fine.
So nothing really is changing?
Nothing has changed in 2 years.
And you generally only have 3 during the summer? Is that the norm?
The teachers' children come back in August.
August.
And so, that's where it's 6.
And then they're out the first part of June anyway.
They're out, exactly.
Okay.
It's a teacher's schedule, so you know how that goes.
And they're gone all during spring break? They're gone to winter break?
2 weeks of
And they're gone
Christmas.
for all the holidays?
Correct.
Okay, that's all the questions I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Zangara.
This one's tough because your neighbors would hate me. My kids have toys all over the place. There'd be baseballs in your yards all over the place. But, I agree with with the comments here because one is you're helping out someone else trying to make a living by watching their kids. I had 2 boys, they both went to Poco Loco right here in Wheeling. I had no problems with it because Grandma was there. But Grandma drove through the fence at Poco Loco.
Well, there you
So
go.
it could happen anywhere. It could happen, any of those things could happen anywhere. It's not just the backyard, it could be, they could drive through a storefront. It's happened.
Right.
So, from the pictures, it's very hard to see that you would have 6 kids there just by the maintenance that I've seen in the pictures, driving by. I drove by and, it's quiet. It's a cul-de-sac. And I was going to make the comment too, my kids would be in the cul-de-sac playing. But, what everyone has said, the comments, the fences, the toys, my question that I have is more or less wintertime. Is the driveway shoveled? It's always shoveled, especially this last winter, we had snow 36 days.
Oh, yes. I usually contract someone out to
Okay.
come and do my driveway. Of course, last year, I didn't. So my husband would get up very early in the morning, or I would be out there shoveling before the parents came.
Okay.
But always the driveway is shoveled for them, of course, and salted.
And then now, I know you said you have 1-year-olds. Besides the home, because I know there's a park close by,
We don't even
Everything
venture
stays,
to the
okay.
park. My yard is large enough to make 2- and 3-year-olds very happy.
so they're basically
So,
always
to
contained.
eliminate liability, I do not even move them to a park.
So they're
There's
either
no need.
in the house or in the backyard.
They're in the house or in the backyard, in the house 90% of the day.
Okay, the rest hit on what I wanted to hit on, and I was just worried about those couple issues, so
Yeah,
that's
thank
all
you.
I really have.
Thank you. Commissioner Vito.
Yeah, just a couple questions. Prior to coming here tonight, were you having any plans in the future of having more than 6 children there?
No, 6 is the number that I'm most comfortable with an adult.
So if that's part of the special use, you'll be okay with that?
Yeah, I'm licensed through DCFS for 8, but 6 is a good number.
Okay. And prior to the sign going up for the hearing, had any of your neighbors said anything to you, positively, negatively, neutrally, about you operating that business there?
Never.
You've never had any comment from any neighbor whatsoever?
Never a comment, ever.
Do you know your next door neighbors, the ones directly next door on both
I do.
sides? Are they here tonight?
They are.
Okay. Did any of them speak and have any complaints?
None,
Okay.
ever.
All right, that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so, here, of the 6 children maximum that you have, how many families are involved with that?
5 families.
5, okay, so you do have a
One
double.
has 2, right.
Okay,
There will be 6 families next year because one of them is moving on to preschool,
okay.
so.
And the 4-foot fence, is that your fence or your
Yes.
neighbor's fence?
Oh, it's our fence.
Okay.
All, the fence is ours all the way around the perimeter. of
Okay.
our-
I think all my other questions have been taken care of. So, as far as conditions, do we need to, in the conditions, waive the fence height?
Yes, the consensus so far that I've heard was that that would be appropriate given the circumstances. You may wish to poll on that before we write it up.
Okay.
I can read the other conditions that you have at this time, or if you'd like to entertain a poll on that, you can certainly do that.
Yeah, let's take a quick poll on waiving the 6-foot fence height,
I mean,
Rule.
leaving it 4 feet?
letting her leave it at 4 feet. Terry?
I think with the buffer that she has, I think 4 feet is probably sufficient.
Commissioner Dorban?
I think 4 feet's fine.
Commissioner Zangari?
I agree.
And Commissioner Vito?
4 feet's fine.
I agree too, so you can write that in there.
1 second, I can read the conditions as they exist.
Okay.
There was a request from an audience member to make an additional comment. If you want, you can certainly entertain that if you'd like to.
Okay, come on up.
You can look right into the yard.
No problem.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's totally impossible to park cars there without.
Can you get back to the microphone, please?
It's impossible to park without parking illegally. Not that that's that big of a deal until something happens. You can see from even the picture with the car, you can't put 4 cars in that driveway without blocking the sidewalk. It's impossible.
It doesn't sound like she's ever going to have 4 cars at a time in the driveway.
When I wrote in my little outline there, every day, I don't write every day, just pull it out of the air. Every single day, the cars are parked illegally. And Ms. Dorband, you made the comment that make sure that people shut their car off. Let me ask you something. So it's 10 below zero. You really think that people are going to shut their car off, take their children in the car, and get back in? So what happens when they leave the car running? I should call you and say, Ms. Dorband, they left the car running again today and ran in the house with the kid. You really believe that? I'm just curious.
I would believe that if we make this a condition, that the petitioner would explain that to her parents and expect that of them.
And you believe that would happen?
Yes, I do.
Absolutely not. You're living in a fantasy world. Lords will tell them, I believe that, and the
I
people
guess
say, yeah.
educators live in a fantasy world.
I'm not saying, I said, if you think you're in a school, you worked in a school, you see you can't even get proper drop-offs there without parents arguing and fighting and cutting each other off. If you think they're going to shut the car off in the middle of winter, walk in, come back out, I mean, if...
We're talking about 5 cars here. We're not talking
And
about...
all 5 will leave the car
We're not
running.
talking about
I'm
100
just
cars coming
bringing
through
up my
a school
opinion.
district lot.
You want me to call you every time? Give me your personal number. I will film the cars running and send it to you. And then I'll say I was right and you were wrong. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Tentatively agree, but to be honest with you, if it's 10 below out, I'm starting my car up 20 minutes early too to let it run. So you would start your car up if it was outside and let it run before you got in it too. So I mean,
I understand that. But you know what happens? What could happen? Somebody jumps in the car, steals it, and drives away. That's the
they have
potential we
insurance.
could have anywhere. I understand that.
Absolutely.
But we're okaying it here. We're going to allow it. We're going to set this precedent that she can have a daycare center, that we wouldn't normally have these cars here. We wouldn't normally have them here if we didn't have the daycare center. That's all I'm saying. But I mean, it's crazy to think they're going to shut the car off. But every single day they're parked illegally. You cannot park, and you cannot park on the street without blocking the driveway. When you say do people park, you can, but you block the driveway. Not 100%, but you block 25%.
Think about how many neighborhoods you drive through that they block the sidewalks all the time.
That doesn't make it right.
So, no, I didn't say it makes it right, but they're not an isolated
But Village of
case.
Wheeling is going to increase the traffic flow there by allowing.
Actually, we're not, because
They've been doing it for...
it's been this way for 2 years, apparently, and it hasn't been a problem for anybody.
Nobody would
to
call and
approach them.
complain because we're not those types of people. What are you going to do, call and complain and say there's a car blocking the driveway? What is
People
that?
do it every
Then the
day.
police are going to come and they're going to be gone and they're going to hate you. One more point, that 4-foot fence, it's falling down. I mean, we could go there now. I could pull it down with one hand. One hand. If I can't pull it down with one hand, I'm a liar. The 4-foot fence on my side is, anyway, I could pull it down with one hand. No tools, no nothing. I can yank it down with one hand. They might not know that. It's possible, Steve, they don't come in the yard there. But the fence is falling down. I can pull it down with one hand. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Would you like to respond to that?
I am unaware of my fence being damaged in any way. I have nothing else to comment about that. It has just recently been repaired because of the accident that Mr. Orlando mentioned, and so a big corner of that was just brand-new footings and brand-new fencing. So I am unaware of our fence being in any disrepair anywhere.
Okay.
There may be 1 or 2 loose boards, but I'm unaware of it. I have also 3 more letters of recommendation. I don't know if you guys...
I believe we had those in our packet.
Well, these are the current parents that I have. They're different ones. I don't know if you are interested.
Andrew, is there a way of having someone go out and inspect that fence to see the condition and put a condition in there that if it is falling down, that if it is needing to be replaced, that we do that?
Sure, we can certainly, I can read the way it's written right now, and the commission can let me know if that's satisfactory.
Fine.
Okay.
If you want to hand the letters of recommendation,
Sure.
you can do that. And for the record, the Plan Commission packet does include several letters of recommendation. Without reading them in their entirety, just by reference, I can, give me 1 second, I can get to that. We have a letter of recommendation from the fall of 2013 from a Rebecca Castro, who's a teacher at Wheeling High School. We have a letter of recommendation of August 2013 by, I don't see if they were high school teachers or not, but Akash and Amanda Bansali. A letter of recommendation from October of 2013 from Amy Kolbapa Shackelford, as well as the ones that were just provided. Joel Seeskin of, I believe this one is recent, 2014. June 2014, Nikki and Corey Wood. And also June 2014 from Kaylin Carlson.
And we had one more in our packet, Andrew, from...
Oh, did I miss one?
Melissa McClanahan?
Melissa McClanahan, September 2013.
All of those are either in District 21 or 214.
I was just about to read the conditions of approval. Is there anything else before I read the way the recommendation would read from the staff report? There's a suggested motion in the staff report which references your project description letter, including the materials associated with your schedule, the itinerary, the floor plan, exit plan, et cetera. The additional conditions from the staff report are as follows. There's number 1, the petitioner addressed the comments in the fire department memo dated July 3, 2014. Number 2 was that the home daycare provide parents with a sheet indicating the additional expectations for drop-off and pickup activities, specifically no sounding of horns, no use of a neighbor's driveway, maintaining safe speed in the neighborhood. Number 3, that the home daycare is limited to 6 children. Number 4, that the vehicles for the homeowner and assistant are kept in the garage. Number 5, that the fence may remain at the existing height provided that it is maintained in good condition in the board-on-board style.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
The one condition that said that, the petitioner and the assistant have to be in the driveway, there may be cases where her husband is sick, ill, has a day off from work, whatever, and may be occupying the car. So I would not like to make that an absolute
When
requirement,
possible.
when possible, I think would be more appropriate.
I could also ask my assistant to park on the straightaway of the street so that the entire driveway is clear completely. That's not a problem at all.
Can I read off this one condition, reword it, and see if the Plan Commission concurs? This is condition number 4, that the vehicles for the homeowner and assistant are parked either in the garage or on the straight portion of the street. Getting nods of concurrence. Okay.
Any other questions from the commission? Anybody? And do I hear a motion?
So moved, Mr.
Second.
Chairman.
Motion made by Commissioner Stylin, seconded by Commissioner Dorband.
Commissioner Stylin.
Yes.
Commissioner Dorband.
Yes.
Commissioner Vito.
Yes.
Commissioner Zangara, I vote yes. Chair Pro Temp Johnson.
Yes.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5 yeses, 2 absent.
We need a motion to close on this.
Do I hear a motion to close?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And for most people, you don't typically attend public hearings, so just procedurally what happens at this point, the Plan Commission is a recommending body on a special use application. The Plan Commission reviews the application with respect to the standards for a special use. A home daycare is a special use with specific rules in a residential district. The Plan Commission's findings with respect to those special use standards, as well as all of your comments, will be packaged and forwarded to the village board, the Board of Trustees, the elected officials for Wheeling, who will then make a final vote on an ordinance that'll be drafted for them to review. So that date is to be determined. You can check back with our office, or you can check with the village manager's office to see when that meeting is scheduled for. But that will be a Monday night. When it happens, it will be on a Monday night at the village board meeting. One more. And we do have a record of the recommendation for you to sign and take with you.
Oh, thank you.
Sir, so there are no more questions that could be answered?
Not at this point.
You will have another chance at the village board meeting to make comments as well.
Something I'm going to ask, if you don't mind.
Very simple.
Go ahead.
Question I wanted to ask, because I live right by that. This has been, and I live in 1475 through 1473. Now, we all know that this has been going on for the last couple of years. I, or my wife, have ever made a complaint to them or to the village. Now, all of a sudden, the sign is posted in front of the house. I make inquiries, and I'm told that they care for 3 children. They're looking to do 6. They're also, I've also been told that they're advertising on the internet, and on the one, they want 8. So if everybody's aware of what's going on, why are we all here today, tonight? Do
DCFS provides the Village of Wheeling, just for background information, DCFS provides the Village of Wheeling with a list of those homes which are licensed. The number of children that they are licensed for is included on that list. That does not indicate how many children they actually have. So what we do, because many people like this petitioner are unaware of the distinction between the Village of Wheeling rules and the DCFS rules, we pay those homes a visit, we meet with the homeowner and explain to them the distinction between the Village of Wheeling rules and the DCFS rules. And that process results in, if they would like to have the additional children beyond what our threshold of 3, if they would like to have those additional children, they need to go through a process like this, notify their neighbors, et cetera. So that's the process right now that you're witnessing. As far as the Village of Wheeling is concerned, yes. The number that she's giving you is, we have no knowledge exactly of what she's got, other than when DCFS informs us, we go pay somebody a visit and try to investigate it ourselves. Sure.
Okay, all set. Calling docket number 2014-12, Tender Loving Service Childcare, 1284 Derby Street, special use site plan approval for home daycare. Mr. Secretary.
Docket number 2014-12, Tina Steele, operator and property owner of Tender Loving Service Childcare, is seeking special use site plan approval as required under Chapter 19-04 Residential Districts, Section 19.04.040 R3 Single Family Residential District, and Chapter 19-10 Use Regulations, Section 19.10.050 Residential Use Regulations, Subsection B, Daycare Home, and associated sections to operate a home daycare on the property located at 1284 Derby Street, Wheeling, Illinois.
Thank you. Is the petitioner here? And will you be the only one speaking on your behalf tonight?
Yes, I will be, unless the board has any questions for two of my families that are currently here with me today.
Okay.
That also signed documentation.
Raise your right hand. Testimony you're about to give, the truth.
Yes.
Name
Tina.
and address.
Tina Steil, S-T-E-I-L, 1284 Derby Street, Wheeling, Illinois.
All right, go ahead.
If you don't mind, I'm going to read it a little bit. A little nervous after what we've gone through already this morning. So as a mother of 3 children, I'm aware of the need for quality childcare. I chose to pursue a career opening my own daycare business to allow me the opportunity to help care, support my own family, as well as help other families that may be looking for a home-based childcare. As Wheeling and other neighborhood communities provide many good options for childcare, opening Tender Loving Service Childcare was the option for me. Tender Loving Service Childcare resides in a good up and growing neighborhood with a good school district and many young growing families. I believe that Tender Loving Service Childcare can provide residents and neighborhood residents that wish for a small home daycare setting another opportunity, one with reasonable rates, safe, caring, and educational. Children can safely play in a spacious fenced backyard with swing, slide, and lots of room to run. A carpeted gated deck is also provided to allow separation of the different age group of children out at play. In the home, a nice jungle-themed playroom is provided as a safe play and learning area with many age-appropriate toys, books, blocks, puzzles, etc. Children have room within the main level of the home, accessing the main living room, dining room, kitchen, restroom, and the playroom, allowing for easy monitoring. TLSC, Tender Loving Service and Childcare, is also part of child and adult food program, providing children with healthy, nutritious food options and providing them with breakfast, lunch, and afternoon snacks. Children will also be able to use appropriate computer learning games, books, music, arts, language, allowing them to reach their next milestones in life. Tender Loving Service Childcare is DCFS licensed, maintains 15 hours of education a year, is first aid CPR certified, has wired smoke detectors on every level of the home carbon monoxide detector, fire extinguisher, and is a smoke-free environment. Tender Loving Service Childcare would not alter or change the character of the area. The area is kept clean, safe, and maintained, no signage or lighting issues. Noise level would be minimum during the day with a small group of children out to play. Parking would be kept at a minimal during morning drop-off and afternoon pickup. Parking is available in the driveway, allowing 3 to 4 cars. There is also front of the home parking as well as side home parking, and it's really never used that often. Just to address, you do have copies of my license, the school policy, which is provided to all parents, the rates, full-time and part-time. There is an emergency plan in place for in the event of an emergency situation with a child needing hospitalization or care, as well as the daycare provider in the event something of an emergency situation should occur. There is an evacuation drill and fire drill plan in place. And you have a copy of the CPR first aid and also a layout of my home where the children are accessing the main level of my home. I have a 2-story home, but the children are on the main level of that home. And then, of course, you have my plot backyard survey. And that particular one that you have, I highlighted in, because that was done prior to my fence. So it's highlighted the fencing around the area. Today I have 2 of my daycare families with me. You were also provided with letters and considerations from them. And they are here, and if you had any questions for them, they would be willing to address any of those questions. But I believe if Tender Loving Service Childcare was able to be approved for the application, that they would just be another great option for home daycare providers and parents. As a mother of 3, I know how expensive daycare is, and that's one reason why I chose to do the daycare as well, stay home with my family and take care of them. And that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Just a couple general questions before we start. You've been operating the daycare center already?
Yes.
With how many kids?
I'm licensed for 8. Right now I have 3, and 1 that will actually be leaving because she's going to kindergarten. So she'll be back periodically.
And plus you have your children?
I have my children.
And that's?
I have a daughter that's 12 and twin boys that are 4.
Okay, thank you. All right, is there anybody signed up to speak on this one?
Do you have the sheet for this one? Thanks. Thomas Crowley? Yes. Can you come forward, please?
Come on up. Do you swear that what you're about to say is the truth?
Yes, I do.
Give your name and address to the recording secretary there.
Thomas Michael Crowley, 595 West Paddock Drive, Wheeling. First of all, I don't necessarily oppose this petition by this lady to operate the daycare center. I have a few questions I would like to ask her. What is the average age of the children that she's taking care of?
Can you answer that?
The average age is usually infants, up to about 5 years old. Usually when they're 5, they move on to kindergarten and may not always.
With the wireless. Can you hang on one second? We're going to hand you the other mic so that you can, if there are additional questions. If you could just.
And for the home audience that's watching this.
Yes. Normally, the children that are with my care are, on average, when they reach 5 years old, they move on. I have one family right now that their daughter is going to kindergarten. She will be she's not in my school district. However, the family is asking if I can watch their children on breaks or summer breaks. So
So to
And I am-
to recap your answer from before the microphone, you said your typical age range is from infant through 5?
Right, it could be older than 5. I am licensed for 8 children. Within those 8 children, certain children have to be of a certain age range. So if I have 3 infants, then I'm maybe allowed 2 to 3 toddlers with only like 2 older children of more than 5 years old.
So DCFS has restrictions on
yes,
the total
DCFS
spread,
yes.
as well as
Right, there's
within that.
rules with DCFS that will allow me within those guidelines to watch certain age groups. I cannot go over 8, and that includes my children.
I wasn't aware of that.
You can't
There
have
was
all infants unless you have.
Yeah, so you
Right,
can't have 8
DCFS
infants.
comes in, they inspect your home, they indicate how many you can have. You cannot go over that. Then that's...
Of each age range?
Exactly. I didn't bring a copy of that, but it is in their DCFS
Does that-
guidelines and rules. And
To your knowledge,
parents are
does
also...
that vary by petitioner or by licensee?
No, it should be a standard. I know with my clients, they get a DCFS booklet, and DCFS requires that the parents receive that and sign it. And I have copies of that in every one of my child's documentation indicating how many children I can watch and of what age group they can be in.
Okay, thank you.
So
Continue.
what is the oldest child that she watches?
I would say my daughter right now, she's 12.
Okay, so
All the other children are younger.
Okay.
And right now I only have 3 with 1 leaving, so I would have 2.
Okay, and the total number of children you're watching currently is what? The total
With
number of
my children is 3, and currently I have 3 others, so there's 6 right now, dropping down to 5.
Okay, I have to say, what piqued my interest when I saw DCFS was involved in this, is DCF strictly a licensing agency here for all daycare centers?
DCFS license is a
License.
wide variety of childcare options. They do home daycares, they do commercial daycare centers. So yes, DCFS is the licensing. The Village of Wheeling also does this special use review in addition to the DCFS licensing.
Okay, I had long experience dealing with DCFS as a policeman. For the long 35 years I was a policeman. What I really wanted to know was whether DCFS is strictly a licensing agency or they're placing children at this house.
No, they don't place children in my home.
Okay, so you're strictly dealing with private citizens' children that you're watching
Right.
for a profit?
Right.
Okay. That was my chief concern, because I know, having been a policeman, I know with DCF placements, sometimes they place what may be called problem children in home settings,
yes.
yeah, which could lead to
Those are
some
fostered.
crime incidents in the neighborhood. That was my primary concern. But if she's not handling any of that, that's fine with me.
No, I don't do foster or anything like that. It's just strictly daycare, childcare.
Okay, those are my principal concerns. I don't have any other questions.
Thank you.
And Mr. Crowley was the only one signed up. Is there anyone else in the audience who has additional comments or questions on this before we open it up to the commissioners?
Okay, I don't see any. So let's start with Commissioner Dorban this time.
Thank you. Okay, so you have your 3 children. And obviously, your 12-year-old will go back to school in the fall. And your 4-year-olds, when will they be going to school?
They're actually signed up this September to go to the Wheeling Public daycare.
So you'll have no children at home, basically, during the day?
They're going to be going to preschool
Okay.
at the Wheeling Park District.
Half day, full day?
3 days a week.
3
Yes,
days,
Monday,
full day?
Wednesday, Friday. No, those, Wheeling only provides half day.
Half day, okay. So basically, your children will be gone a good portion of the time, and you plan on having 3 additional children besides your own, or are you planning on going to 8?
Well, I am licensed for 8. It varies. Families come and go. They're able to leave whenever they want to leave. So it would all, I always follow the guidelines of up to 8. never more than that. And that includes 3 of my own children, so that only allows me 5 daycare families or 5
Right.
children.
And one child has gone all day to school, and the other, within a year, the other ones will too.
Yes.
The same question, I wanted to comment on the same thing I talked with the other petitioner about, is having the parents pull into the driveway, shut off their engines, and bring the children in. You know, I'm sure you can police that, pretty well.
Yeah, 2 of my families are here currently right now, so they're
Yeah, so that,
hearing and listening, and they have no problem with that.
yeah, that's my only concern. Otherwise, I don't see an issue, and you've been doing this for how long?
I've actually going on 9 years now.
And over the 9 years, what was the maximum number of children you had?
8, always 8.
Always 8?
Yep.
Including yours?
Did you ever have 8?
Not until I had my own kids. My twins. When I had my twins, there was one time I believe I had 8, but it was for a short period of time.
That's all I have, thank you.
Okay.
Commissioner Zangara?
I actually drove by today and saw them swinging on the swing set. Do you have anyone with you? Are you doing it by yourself, or is there
I'm by
someone else?
myself right now.
Okay.
So no assistant. And the families are all aware of that, so if I'm not available to them, they get reimbursed and to have another opportunity to find child care when I'm not available.
Okay.
So,
And then like I said, I go by there all the time. Your fence is 4 feet all the way around, correct?
yes, it's about 4 to 5. It's an arched fence. That's been approved by DCFS, so I was not aware of any other needed changes for that.
I mean, there's no one here arguing. I personally wouldn't want to see it higher because I know the corner you're on, it would destroy what the corner looks like if you put something big up. And then I guess my next question, like I answered last time, with that new park there, do you take them to the park at all during the day, or are they strictly?
If the parents approve, like a park visit, I can take them to the park, but I don't usually do that, especially with a big group of children. I don't take that responsibility. They stay home and they play.
Okay. That's, everything else, like I said, I've driven by, it's very well maintained. Once again, you never see toys or anything anywhere out.
I try to clean it up when they're not out there playing.
We always comment about your advertising in the tent.
Yeah. Try to provide a little shade, keep them cool from the sun.
Other than that, like I said, I just wanted to comment with the 4-foot fence, but I personally would not want to see it. I personally prefer it
I don't think
like
my
that.
neighbors would like it either.
So, that's all I have.
Thank you. Commissioner Stylen?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess my couple concerns, I believe with her 3 children that would limit the number of patrons that you could have down to 5 more children.
Right, 5 is it, with my 3.
Would you be willing to have a condition that the maximum of, I don't know, what do you call it, for-profit children that you could have would be, or that you could provide daycare services for would be 5?
Just before you answer, I just interject. The DCFS code actually would treat her oldest child now as out of the range. So technically by DCFS, her oldest child is not childcare age. So she would technically now, because her child is aged out, be able to have her twins plus 6.
What number of children that are not yours are you planning, would you like to be able to watch? I don't care what DCFS says.
I would like to have at least 6.
Okay, so you would ask for 6, okay?
5 to 6.
Well, give me a number.
Well, I would say 6 because that's literally what DCFS allows me.
Okay, that's fine. And I have a big concern again with fences, and neighbors that might have dogs. Do any of your neighbors have
Yes,
dogs?
yes.
I really believe that we should have a board-on-board fence for protecting the children from neighboring pets. So I would like to recommend a condition that says that a board-on-board fence be installed if and when and where neighbors have dogs, to prevent little hands from going through fences, trying to pet dogs, and all of a sudden, chomp chomp, sorry. That would be my only recommendation for a condition.
The only neighbor that I know that have a dog is the neighbor right directly behind me. So, I mean, are you talking about full fence all the way around, or just in the back, or?
I would ask that a board-on-board fence be blocking from your neighbors that have dogs. So if a neighbor comes in 3 years from now with a dog, then you'll have to take additional action. Okay? That would be my recommendation.
Okay.
And it's up to the rest of the commissioners to decide. So, thank you, Mr. Chairman. That's my only concern.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Vito.
On the advice of staff, I'm going to recuse myself. Tina was actually watched my children when they were younger, so.
Okay. I too am a little bit more concerned with this fence versus the last petitioner because it's right on a busy street. Although I agree with Commissioner Zangara, putting up a 6-foot fence there would definitely not be very attractive. So I'm kind of torn on this one. As far as Commissioner Stylin's concerned, you said it's the house directly behind you
That
has the dog? How many properties actually touch yours?
There's only 2 behind me and the neighbor next door to me. And the,
I have an aerial view here. Okay. Yeah, that would be just that length of fence. And it's the same fence all the way around, right?
yes.
I wonder if, to meet Commissioner Stylin's concern, if a screening material placed inside the fence where little hands could go through?
What about a landscape buffer?
Or a landscape buffer?
Yeah, I would say, a landscape buffer that would prohibit the children from going, or well-defined landscape area. Even some kind of buffer material that was added to the fence, I would think would be acceptable. Not too worried about kids that are tall enough to be able to reach over,
right,
unless it's a real big dog. But I think we need to protect children from.
Now, is that something that you would request a bonded person to do, or someone like me can go and install the screening?
I don't think that we have a requirement for a modification to a fence to be done by a bonded contractor. What's being discussed so far, I've heard 3 or 4 different options, and what I'm trying to write in is a recommendation for a condition that gives you some flexibility to explore your options, landscaping. You could possibly convert this fence to a board-on-board fence by adding the board on the other side of the rail, which may be an option for that 30 or so feet that you abut the house with the dog. So I can try to draft a condition that's...
Is the neighbor's house that has a dog, is that fenced in as well, or do they use your fence as...
No, they don't have a fence. They train their dogs. The dog stays in their yard. Dog's friendly. But I understand what you're saying.
That's today's
But
block, tomorrow.
they don't, yes, they don't have a fence.
Yeah, it
I'm the only one
appears-
with the fence
it appears all
between
the
the two
fences-
neighbors. I'm the only one with the fence there.
Oh, you're the only fence in your, because the other ones almost look like.
There's one, but
nothing
that's
there. Oh, okay.
a house away.
So this neighbor's dog could, the neighbor behind you, their dog could get to the neighbor next to you, right?
Yeah.
So it would be the two sides then. So while Mr. Jennings is trying to draft up a, as generic a fix for you as we can, 'cause we're just concerned, you know, the safety of the kids.
That's fine.
And there would normally be a period of time for her to take care of this.
The most similar item that we had, in my recollection, there was a condition that waived the fence requirement and lessen until it became necessary to install it. So the Plan Commission can consider that or require some sort of additional protection to narrow the gaps in the fence within a year. There's a couple of different ways at the discretion of the commission that this could be worded.
Mr. Stylen, any input on that?
No, I mean, it just needs some level of protection.
From little hands getting through.
Yeah.
I agree.
And, you know, if it was a fabric material or something like that that would block little hands from going through, I'd accept that, so.
Some kind of netting or something that
Some
would,
kind of netting, screening,
Chicken wire.
well,
That's a little
chicken wire,
tacky,
they can
but-
get fingers.
Yeah.
yeah,
I'd probably ask, I mean, if it's netting or screening, I mean, what's to keep it from being ripped?
You know, so, you know, I like somebody's idea of putting a board on the other side, making it look like a board-on-board fence to fill in that slat area might be the best way to do it.
Any other questions or concerns while we're,
Any other
waiting for the
suggestions by anybody?
creative Mr. Jennings?
We got an architect down there who might,
I said landscaping. Gee, you get that buffer between the fence and kids aren't gonna go in the dirt. Mine will, but.
What I would suggest at this point is the petitioner's been provided a couple of options, and she can certainly look at it. I think we can allow some flexibility as the recommendation is written to the board, and the board can certainly agree or disagree, but between now and the board meeting, the petitioner would have some time to look into some options.
plan.
All right, so if you can read the conditions as they exist.
If they exist now, the conditions from the staff report remain. Number one, the petitioner addressed the comments in the fire department memo dated July 3rd, 2014. Number two, that the home daycare provide parents with a sheet indicating the additional expectations for drop-off and pickup activity. No sounding of horns, no use of a neighbor's driveway, and maintaining a safe speed in the neighborhood. And number three, the fence may remain in its existing height and style, provided that it is maintained in good condition and the petitioner provide protection to prevent children from reaching through the fence.
Mr. Chairman, could we also add the condition of limitation of 6 children in addition to the 2 that,
Well, that's taken care of through the DCFS license. She can't go more than that anyways,
sure she could apply for 10, right?
not through DCFS.
Not through DCFS.
And the Village of Wheeling,
And the Village of Wheeling.
caps it at 8 as well.
So
So
there's really no need.
Is our limit by default then 8?
Yes, yes.
So until her two youngest ones
Get old.
age out, she can't have more than 6 for-profit. And the two younger ones are how old?
4.
So it'll be a while.
Another year.
Okay, so anything else?
No, those were the 3 conditions.
Okay. So do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, motion made by Commissioner Dorvan, seconded by Commissioner Zangara.
Commissioner Dorman?
Yes.
Commissioner Zangara, vote yes. Commissioner Stylen?
And Andrew, we did have a time limit for upgrading the fence or whatever?
As it's written right now, no. Is there, Commissioner Dorman made the motion, Commissioner Zangara seconded. Is there a time limit that you'd suggest to modify for their motion?
Probably for winter, so what would that be? 5 months?
I think there's something that we could come up with a date prior to the end of November.
November 15th is usually a cutoff between winter and outside work.
Commissioner Dorban, you made the motion. Is that acceptable?
Yes.
And Commissioner Zangara, you seconded?
Yes.
Then I'll vote yes.
Commissioner Vios abstained.
Abstain.
Chairperson Pro Temp Johnson?
Yes.
4 yeses, 1 abstained, 2 absent.
Thank you.
And we need a motion to close, please.
And we need a motion to close. And a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
And as with the previous special use, this is a recommending body. The motion made here will be converted into a series of findings, will be packaged for the village board. We'll be in touch regarding the date for that meeting. It'll be a Monday night. We'll have to check with the manager's office to see what their agenda is like. I would say between July 21st and August 4th, I think at this point, probably in that range. So we'll check and let you know, okay?
Thank you.
And we'll have something for you to sign. Yeah. Yeah, we'll do a little break then. After we get the signatures. Actually, we could call it now. They can all go. Okay, we're going to take a 5-minute recess before we get to the rest of our business.
What'd I do?
All right, calling the meeting back in order. Next on the agenda is approval of the minutes from June 12th, 2014. Do I hear a motion?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
With the note that the minutes were not in our packet, but they were available
Online.
online on the village website.
Mr. Jennings, would you like to address that situation?
I will have to look back at that and see. I'm not sure what happened.
Okay.
As long as you found them and were able to read them, you can vote on them.
So we have a motion and a second, I believe?
Yes.
All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
And the minutes from June 26, 2014.
Same comment, motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Other business. Mr. Jennings.
Thank you. I have just a brief update, I believe, on a couple of the workshop items that we're working on. The Plan Commission, over the course of the last month or so, actually probably going back to the joint board and Plan Commission meeting, has gone back through the list of priority projects to come up with some workshop items. So the idea here is to have the staff keep preparing some amount of material, work on this when we can, so that when we have meetings that are maybe a little bit shorter, we can give you updates and continue our feedback and discussion on these projects. So right now, we have generally for the July and August meetings, the ones that we're working on are the streetlight program. Specifically, the commission had requested to discuss potential recommendations to the village board with respect to decorative streetlights in the town center area. So we're beginning that process right now. Design standards for exterior building materials, otherwise known as the masonry requirement. We've begun research on that. So those are the two that we're working on. We also have started some additional work on the landscape requirement, research on exterior lighting code standards, and the semi-annual use table update. So where we are right now with these, if I could just go through a couple of them, show you what we're doing. The street lighting, what we have done so far is we've sent out a survey to the Northwest Municipal Conference. We requested feedback from, I believe, about 30 different municipalities as to whether or not they use a decorative street light, where they implement the program, how it's implemented, does it overlap with IDOT or county streets. What we've been told by the Northwest Municipal Conference is that those surveys should be back in tomorrow, which means that it's possible that we could have that feedback for you by next Thursday's meeting. We do have what I would say is likely to be a fairly short meeting next Thursday, so we could have that discussion continue on next Thursday. Don't have it yet, but it's out there. What we've done so far, though, is we've started to take a look at some of the options, what's out there, what's available. What we found so far is that some of the manufacturers keep pretty extensive lists of their completed projects. So when they design a specific fixture for a specific location, they will name it after that location. It will then get used. They'll make it for other people. They keep the molds. They'll make them for other people, but it may be named something like the Glenview or something. So a couple of the manufacturers, we've saved their online catalogs of their completed projects, so you can see which ones are local, which ones may have a prairie theme, which ones may have sort of a maritime theme. There's a whole range of options available. Of course, all of that has to be combined with what we would need from IDOT, and what we would need in terms of cost, what we need in terms of ability to replace the lights. But that's a useful, in terms of seeing a bunch of lights in a catalog type format, that's a really good resource. So we've been downloading those. We also visited the Northwest Highway towns. We visited Des Plaines, Mount Prospect, and Arlington Heights. We thought this was a good example, just in a local example of town center areas that are along an IDOT street. There's rail nearby. The roadway tends to be a similar road section in that it's four-lane. Northwest Highway is primarily 4-lane with a turn lane whenever you break the tracks. So it's got some parallels to how our town center area would be expected to develop. The towns have, each one of those towns has a decorative street light. They all have highway-style lights that are not decorative, that are very close to the town center area, so the transition is short, we've noticed. So all three of those towns, when you hit the town center area, they immediately change right into it. And there's some overlap where some of the highway-style lights are directly adjacent. You'll see in some of the pictures, you'll see the standard silver highway-style light right next to one of the decorative lights. This is the... Sure.
The picture before this one, where was this?
Oh, we'll get there.
We'll get there.
That's Mount Prospect. So in the Des Plaines area, so traveling, I think our photos kind of travel through Des Plaines and up. We've got a decorative light. They have it at 2 different heights. They have it at a lower height, slightly higher, probably a 10-foot difference, would you say? Maybe a 20-foot light and possibly a 30-foot light. It has the ability, it has brackets, which are not original to the light as far as I could tell. They look like they're add-on brackets, clamp style that's added on. It's obviously sturdy enough to hold their street banners. Probably not designed to hold much more weight than that. But this gives an example of what they've got. They've got a double-headed version of it. This is sort of the town, in the downtown area, there's a square, there's a restaurant.
Oh, that fairly new one.
Exactly.
Yeah, okay.
Parking garage would be just off.
Right.
Over here. So the Mount Prospect options were, as you can see back in the back here, they have sort of an upgraded highway style light that is black. It kind of matches with the pedestrian height light standard. These, I would say, are fairly short, actually. I would put them in the 12-foot range. This was not much above my head, the bar here. It looks as though the Mount Prospect light, and we can confirm with their staff, it looks as though the Mount Prospect light may have had an original installation, and then they had a company rebuild them later on. You can tell that some are certainly older than others. But the larger light, they do use it in the same area. There was no, I would say there was no clear delineation between the taller light area and the shorter light area. These taller lights are designed to hold the flower baskets. You can kind of see them in the shadows here, as well as a banner, and they are tall enough that the parking signs are also mounted on them. Arlington Heights, similar to the other two, has a pedestrian style light. You can see here. They have a slightly more decorative, taller light. You can see both of them in this one shot, the height difference. In this shot, you can also see the more traditional mast arm galvanized look over there. They have one in the same decorative style that has a double-headed pedestrian height light on it as well. Most of these towns also have matching street furniture that goes along with it. They have some sort of bench. Mount Prospect has a signature bike rack that they put out on the public sidewalks. They have trash cans that are also sort of this powder-coated black that go along with it. They have a street sign. The street signs in each one of these towns change when you enter the town center area. They have a more decorative treatment for that as well. So what we hope to gain from our next steps of this is try to figure out implementation is one part of it. How do you go about implementing it? It may make sense to plan for a style and make a recommendation to the board for a style, and also make a recommendation as to how to roll something out. These towns are clearly established downtown areas, each one of them. They probably didn't start with the lights and then add the buildings. They probably went the other way around. So in the town center area, we may need to figure out, here's where we anticipate this amount of frontage, this many linear feet. Work with a lighting designer to figure out how to space the lights appropriately, and then style-wise, what types of recommendations the commission would make to the board.
I would assume the developer is going to come up with a idea too.
If it's done in conjunction with the development, sure. I think that you also have some ability to make design guidelines, to go ahead and select something. It's very possible that some of these developments could be smaller and not have private road type of development. So, as we get in more information from the municipalities, I think that'll help us give you guys a good sense of your options. Commissioner Stein?
Question for you, Andrew. I think one of the things that is common to many of the pedestrian-oriented things that you've shown are very wide sidewalks and, in many cases, buildings that are pretty adjacent to the streetscape with no or little green space, whatever. Do you anticipate, looking at your crystal ball 30, 40 years from now, are we going to eventually be something like that? Or do you think that, we'll always have parking lots immediately adjacent to Dundee Road that are cramping the businesses from, you know what I mean? Do you think we will evolve to this kind of character over time?
Well, you have some of these roads, you look at Milwaukee, the character of Milwaukee Avenue is not the same if you go from town to town. There are places on Milwaukee Avenue where the section of the roadway is altered. You have, in the examples that we've shown today, you have Northwest Highway itself having a more pedestrian character to it as well. It's not just the side streets off of Northwest Highway. Some of the photographs were Northwest Highway. So I think it's certainly possible. I think over the next year or so, as the village begins to review some plans, the idea of the town center committee plan from a couple of years back, I think 2010, and then maybe approved beginning of 2011, the idea of that was certainly to create a more pedestrian environment inside the town center. The outside area, though, I think the village had anticipated that the Dundee Road's character would likely remain somewhat as you see it today.
But I mean, my presumption is that all the vacant property we have on the north side of Dundee Road will probably be developed over time. Would you assume that development will bring businesses closer to the roadway and parking will be in back, or do you think we'll continue with parking along Dundee Road?
I would guess that you'll probably see the trend toward parking in the front, given the character of Dundee Road. Parking in the front does not mean, though, that you can't have a pedestrian character. There's plenty of examples of pedestrian enhancement of a streetscape where you still have parking in between the curb and the business. So it is possible to have a place, have a more, there are things that you can do with a street area to make it more comfortable for pedestrians.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions on this one? So like I said, next week we should have, if we wrote a survey that people thought, well, this is something we have to respond to, then we'll get some responses. We try to respond to them when we get them, so we would hope that some of these other municipalities are doing the same. If we get, 20% of them to respond, it will be helpful to us. So the progress so far on the exterior building materials, what we've done so far is we've begun to review how different towns handle this in their codes. We've looked at a bunch. Right now, I can tell you that they're not all the same. Some towns handle this as an amendment to their building code. Some towns have their exterior building materials in the zoning code. Some of them have them in the subdivision code. Some have them as a totally separate guideline. They have the downtown area of some towns will have a design standard document that'll cover everything from the streetscape, sidewalk width, desired street lighting, and also the building materials, minimum transparency requirements, minimum height of a cornice line. There's a whole range of things in terms of building form and design that some towns want to prescribe in their downtown areas. So it runs the gamut, really. What we haven't found are very many that are exactly like the Village of Wheeling's current requirements. They tend to be, there are some, but they tend to be prohibitions on certain materials. Limitations on EFIS were pretty common among these towns, specifically limiting Dryvit, EFIS, those other types of engineered stucco materials to be either above a certain height, limited to a certain percentage, block material, whether it's split face or smooth block, is prohibited in a good number of towns. There's several of the examples that we're able to find have a list of acceptable materials. And I think so far this is probably what our recommendation is going to be to the commission in the end, is to have a list of acceptable primary building materials. These are the ones that are acceptable, and spell it out, and then have a list of prohibited materials, spell it out, and then have a list of acceptable accent materials. So as long as your accent materials aren't over a certain percentage, and you limit your accent materials to 1 or 2, and your primary materials to 1, maybe 2, this is the range of options. Now, if you want to select something that is not on the list, you need to come in and get specific authorization to proceed with it. So that's what I think, based on what I've seen so far, I think that's probably what I would suggest. The commission certainly can come up with other options to consider, but that takes away the question of, is it material masonry, is it not? Well, it doesn't matter so much. If it's on the list of accepted materials, it's on the list. And then we can see, once we write something like that out, I think that the commission can weigh the options. There still may be certain areas where there'd be a minimum amount of brick or face brick. But at that point, we can certainly tweak it. But I think that what we're heading toward is probably a recommendation of prohibited list, acceptable list, and some amount of accent. Any questions on this one? This is what we have more or less right now. No need to read through all that. I just copied and pasted it from another presentation. The last time we talked about materials, it was specific to the cement fiberboard. Just as a reminder, we had visited several locations that had relatively new cement fiberboard installations. A little bit difficult to see on my screen. I don't know how detailed yours is, but this one is showing a mix of brick, stone, and then 3 different types of cement fiber board. Again, a mix of stone and cement fiberboard. So,
yeah, I guess, Andrew, when it comes to that stuff, I mean, I've looked at it, and there are all different widths of, you know, there's 1/4 inch up to 5/8 inch, some of which I saw said it takes, 12 men to lift one of the panels up. Just saying that the cement fiberboard or whatever you call it is acceptable, could you look into the thickness aspects from a longevity, durability kind of perspective?
we could, while you're on it, one of the things that that I saw in the towns that addressed EFIS was a requirement for, they had an extra requirement of I don't want to say it was a surety bond because I'm not totally sure of that, but there was a requirement for some sort of additional bond beyond what their normal contractor's bond would be. And then there was a requirement to include a certificate from an engineer certifying that it had been installed correctly. So part of that is it is as thick as we said it is, and it was installed in the manufacturer's guidelines. So there's a possibility of adding something like that to the requirement. So if you're going to use this particular material and its durability has been found to be based on a certain installation style, method, thickness, we're going to require you to certify that it's done that way.
Sounds excellent to me.
Mm-hmm. More of that. These are just more mixes of things that certainly would not meet our current masonry requirement, but they are built in accordance with some fairly strict design guidelines that the towns that we've taken these samples from have material standards, they have design guidelines, not so much a percentage of masonry, but still a standard.
So that one there, that's all fiberboard or cement?
That building, I would say, is almost all cement fiberboard. There's some stone accent, but the trim is also, I believe all the trim on this one was also cement fiberboard.
Really? Wow.
Oop, we're in recess again. So I think that covered the progress on the ones we've got so far. Like I said, next week we do hope to have a little bit more on a couple of these items. If I can go back to our whatever we thought would happen over July, and so we're hoping to have a few of these things, some progress on these in July and August, and we're going to keep working on the landscape. And we sent a survey out on that one as well to see what some municipalities do in terms of their landscaping code, what triggers a new landscape plan to be submitted, is it minor or major, et cetera. With an addition, how is it handled? So hopefully we get some good feedback on that survey as well. Any other questions on these?
Andrew, a couple of weeks ago, I think you made the comment that the state of Illinois' street lighting program, or was it lighting in general, had been changed, and that our code is probably deficient from their code. Is their code, I went and tried to look at some of it, and it seems like they were talking about energy efficiency and not being too overly bright in some cases. Have you had a chance to look into their standards, and will they change our life dramatically?
It changes our life only, I wouldn't say dramatically, but it does change. My interpretation of their code is that it specifically prohibits us from applying our code. So in that respect. So, yes, I mean, it's something that we do need to look at. You know, we were totally unaware of this, and once we've been made aware of it, I think we have some obligation to investigate it. It does look on first read that we would not comply with the state code, our code, and a plan submitted in accordance with our code would not apply, comply with the state.
And you said that these were lighting standards, like?
Exterior lighting standards. The state of Illinois has adopted even applicable to home rule communities, exterior lighting standards that we do not appear to comply with.
And that's for businesses, homes,
Yes.
everything, right?
Yes, they are based in energy efficiency to a great extent. That's where you can tell by looking at it that is what they're shooting for, is reducing the amount of energy used on lights.
And even the intensity and spillover and stuff like that I saw.
So combine that with the model ordinances that we've looked at. The point of some of these model lighting requirements now is to simplify them, which I think, based on our recent reviews, I think everybody's in favor of simplifying the review. The way that they're simplifying it is taking the foot candles out of it to a great extent. What they do is with an initial the initial lumen output of a fixture and the height of the fixture, they know what happens with the photometrics. So what happens with the foot candle levels based on these heights. So a lot of them have been going toward a initial lumen range. It can be between this and this, and the poles have to be between this height and this height. And you know, if you do those things, the light at the ground level is going to be acceptable. It's going to be, it's not going to spill over, but it's going to be safe level. So that I think is sort of the model that we're going to take and see if we can find something that also complies with the state.
How long has that state ordinance been in existence?
That I don't know.
Because I know Crystal Lake just redid a portion of their lighting with very nice, but seemingly very dim lights. Is that what you think the trend is going to be?
I'm not sure on that. The trend has been toward energy efficiency, and one of the things that I think has been difficult to balance is light level. So if you look at California, for example, has an extremely involved lighting requirement based on energy efficiency. So what happens in California if you combine the light requirement and the uniformity requirement, uniformity means you're going to have multiple poles. So in order to achieve minimal electricity usage and a bunch of poles, what they require is smart lighting, so the lights have to turn off or they have to dim. You know, their lights have to adjust, and that's what the state of California has done to address the fact that uniform lighting means basically more lights. So one way or another, you have to get the energy usage down. If you're gonna, you can light I don't know if you remember the Wix light. Did a pretty good job of lighting that parking lot with one light.
Yeah, so, one fixture.
It was, 300 feet tall, and you could see it from space. You could probably read by it, but yeah, it's,
Their store down in, where was it, Addison or somewhere like that, they had the same thing. You'd see it for miles.
So, but that's kind of what we're looking at. We're not quite there yet. It's a specific area of knowledge that it takes us some research for sure. We're not lighting designers by any stretch, so it takes us.
So if Wheeling puts up a big enough pole in the center of town,
eliminate all the rest of the lights. We could call it the sun.
The Wheeling sun.
Any other questions?
Very good.
All right.
That's it?
That's it for me.
Okay. Continuing with other business. Let's Start with Commissioner Vito. Anything you'd like to discuss?
No, just glad to be on board. And that's about it. Looking forward to being on the commission.
Commissioner Zangara, anything?
Just want to say that really nice seeing all these people out at the 4th of July. This place was really packed, and it wasn't Wednesday, it was Thursday when it was nice and warm out. So that was really good, and also that there is at Pleasant Run next Thursday, there is a movie at the park. That's all I have.
Commissioner Stylen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You know, I've noticed that many of our shopping centers, Lynn Plaza, Dunhurst, Gaslight, seem to be suffering from a lot of dead bushes and shrubs and unfortunately trees that are dead or dying. And just wonder what our replacement policy is for keeping those establishment rather than pulling out the dead bushes and having gaps and stuff. Are we proactive in trying to get the businesses to replace their dead and or dying shrubbery and trees?
You know, I don't know the number of citations that they send out, but the village inspectors do write tickets on dead trees, dead shrubs. You can always call the code hotline and call if there's a specific one. It's always possible that they haven't been alerted to it. Or
how long does it take to get resolution to some of those things? Are we talking a year, 2 years?
Well, it depends. I mean, you know, some property owners respond immediately, and some need extra motivation through the full range of enforcement options. So it really does depend. But yeah, if the village inspectors have it already on their radar, it's very possible that it's in some level of enforcement. If not, the code hotline is the best way to get it documented.
Any chance that we can get some feedback about where deficiencies might be known so we don't keep calling over and over again?
If you call it in once, it does result in a complaint follow-up. If you call the code hotline, you will be anonymous and you won't get a phone call back. If you call and ask to speak with the inspector, after that point, you'd be able to get some follow-up. But the code hotline does not result in follow-up with the person who complains.
Anything else?
Joe, welcome aboard. Be interested in hearing a little bit about you later on. Welcome aboard.
Thank you.
Commissioner Dorband.
Thank you. I had something similar that Terry had, talking about dead bushes on Dundee Road down by McDonald's going east and west of there. So I was happy you brought that up because I was going to bring up the same thing. Just wanted to welcome Joe, and that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Zangara.
Let me go again.
No,
Did I do you anything? I'm sorry.
Other
twice is good.
Yeah, other business part 2. I'd also like to welcome Mr. Vito to our little group, and did have a question, and I can't remember what it was now. Oh well, I guess it can wait. So if there's nothing else?
Things down.
Yeah, I know. If there's nothing else, do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor of adjournment?
Aye.
Aye. Right on.